Hello everyone! Today I'm here to share with you some of my favorite small town reads. So I've been thinking about this video for quite some time because, you know, we all have favorite genres we make up in our head. Like I have ones that are like podcast books, you know, books with podcasts in them, or small town reads, which basically means books that take place in a small town. It's not that complicated, but I don't know why. I just adore small town books, and I always love reading them in the fall. A lot of these books kind of are repetitive with my fall reads, but I still wanted to make this video because there's just a lot of books that I love that I notice are set in small towns and just give you that small town feel. I love that. I don't live in a small town at all. I think my love of small town probably comes from Stars Hollow, Connecticut, aka Gilmore Girls. Ever since then, I don't know, any sort of small town book, I'm like, I want to read it right now. I have to read it right now. So I have a list of some books that I want to share that take place in small towns that I just love and adore. Hopefully you like this. I'm sure I'm going to be forgetting some because I do that per usual. So be sure to leave them down below which small town books that you would recommend. I have Evie Drake Starts Over by Linda Holmes. If I'm not mistaken, this takes place in a small town, like kind of near Maine, New England, I guess you could say as like a whole, but this is about a woman named Evie Drake who has a husband that she doesn't really love. She's trying to get out of the marriage, and suddenly he passes away in a car crash. And so everyone really is, you know, feeling sorry for Evie because she's like, oh, your husband died, but she's not that sad about it because she was planning on leaving him. So basically what happens in this book is she has to rent out a room in her house, and this baseball star comes lives with her that was a famous pitcher but has the yips, and a romance develops between them. And this book is one of those books that's a slow kind of book, a more character-driven book, which I noticed are kind of really small town reads where it really focuses on the character and the town, not so much like the plot, just kind of quieter books, if you will. And this is one of my favorite ones. I love it so. It gives you that kind of fall New England vibes. They have Celebrate Thanksgiving in this book, Christmas, baseball season. It's just got it all, and I love it. Perfect small town book in my opinion. Next up, I have One True Loves by Jenkins Reid, aka one of my favorite authors of all time. So this one made the list for small town reads because this is about a woman named Emma who, when she was young, got married to the love of her life. They traveled the world. It was amazing. And he goes missing one time because he is like a photographer, and he goes on this helicopter ride to photograph some things with this company, and the helicopter never returns and the bodies are never found. So obviously she is in mourning. So she decides to move back home to her really small town in Massachusetts, and she helps run her family's bookstore, and things are going really good, and she's finally, you know, learning to love herself after this insanely big loss, and she starts to have feeling for this other guy that's always kind of been in her life. And then what do you know, her husband is found alive and he is coming home. So this is really a love triangle type of book, that's for sure. And it takes place in a small town. It's just interesting to read about her character because when she was growing up in this small town, she loathed it and wanted to get out of it as soon as she could to travel the world. And she did that. And when she came back home, she learned that she loved this small town so much. She loves the small bookstore that her family has, and she just loves the people. And it's really just a great small town read for that. And, you know, it's got a lot of romance in it as well, like what team you will be on. But it's a great one. I've noticed a lot of small town books also feature a lot of bookstores. I'm not complaining whatsoever with that. Next up, of course, we have Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This is my favorite book by Fredrik Backman. He is a Swedish author, and this takes place in a place called Beartown in Sweden. And Beartown is a very, very small town, like very small. The one thing that they're known for is ice hockey. Their teams always win, the high school team, and they're just amazing. And so basically in this book, this big event that happens that kind of really splits the town in half. I will tell you it does have to do with rape, and if that's a trigger for you, I understand. I just thought I would let you know that that is a big proponent of this book. So yeah, it splits the town in half. the star hockey player is at trial and things are just going really hard. But this one is truly about a small town and about the people that live in it and how they're divided with this issue, this really big issue that's important and needs to be talked about. But this is not like a warm and fuzzy book like a lot of these other books are. Like, if you want just one that makes you happy and feel great, I don't know if this one would be great. This one will punch you in the gut. So in case you like want one that will make you like feel ooey gooey and all that kind of stuff, and then one that will like hit you in the feelings, this one will do that for you. But either way, it's a beautiful book. My favorite by him. I fell in love with a lot of these characters from this very small town and from this town in general. I love. So this one, amazingly, perfect to read in wintertime too, because it's all about ice hockey. The next one I wanted to mention is Girl Gone Viral by Alicia Reid. I read this year and fell in love with it. So this one's kind of breaking the rules just a little bit. So in this book, we follow a character named Katrina, and she's enjoying her life in LA. Everything's going great, and she's really trying to avoid the media for reasons that you will figure out in the book. And basically one day she's like at a cafe and this guy starts talking to her and flirts with her, and people start documenting it and using the hashtag like Cafe Bae, and then becomes like really viral. And she's like, she gets really legitimately scared. So she actually has a bodyguard, and so he kind of swoops in and takes her to his home where it's like a orchard, like a farm. And so that's kind of the small town aspect I wanted to focus on. So the beginning of the book, she's in LA, but then most of the book, I'd say like 3/4 of it, she spent at this really kind of small peach farm with her bodyguard. So I think that counts as small town. I'll just say it does because I feel like it does. It was just, this is a great kind of like slow burn friends to lovers romance, and you have this beautiful like peach orchard with baking going on, and it's just oh so cozy, and I loved it so insanely much. Next up, of course, is The Bake Shop at Pumpkin and Spice. This is 3 authors that are in it. I talked about this in my fall reads video because look at the cover, but this is told in this town called Moonbright, Maine. There's 3 stories, and it centers around kind of the fall and love, and it's just literally a small town book. Like, there are 3 stories about 3 characters that live in this small town, and they all kind of coincide with each other in the stories. It all kind of centers around one bakery. It's adorable, it's sweet. If you're just looking for a cozy fall read, look no further. You're not gonna get a ton of depth, but you're gonna get a ton of small town fall vibes. I'm talking about you, stars looking at the kids. Next up is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. This book is all about a character named Emily who has to move to her sister's small town of Willow Creek, Maryland. And because her sister had a car accident, and she has to help kind of raise her niece. And so she gets roped into basically doing this Renaissance fair, and there she meets the teacher at a school that's a part of the fair, and they have a hate to love relationship. And it's just adorable. I've never been in a Renaissance fairs, never had a desire to, but after reading this, like, I want to visit all the Renaissance fairs. Like, it just has such a small town, homey feel. And if you guessed it, guess where she gets a job at in this book? A bookstore. Small town reads, bookstores, coincidence? I think not. Of course, we can't talk about small town reads without talking about Alaska. So, The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker takes place in a very small town in Alaska. I have a thing for Alaska books. I just enjoy them.
Editing Heather here. I also forgot to mention another small town Alaska book I love, The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Another great book set in Alaska, very small town, while this one is much more heart-wrenching and serious, but one of my favorite small town reads for sure. I cannot believe I forgot to mention it.
This book follows a character named Kala who learns that her father is not doing very well. And so she decides to go visit him in Alaska. He's a charter pilot, and there she meets a guy named Jonah who's rugged and, you know, mysterious, and they have a hate to love relationship. And this one really is a small town, like, I don't know if you would even go out of town. Like, it doesn't have very much at all. So she has to really get familiar with Alaska and learn how to navigate it and navigate the people that are in it, all while, you know, maybe falling in love with a handsome and rugged, you know, charter pilot. It was amazing. I highly recommend it. And again, Alaska, wilderness, bears, hiking, plains. It's got it all. Next up is one I don't hear a ton of people talk about, and that is The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abby Waxman. So this one, I don't know if it takes place in a small town, but it just gave me such small town feels, if that makes any sense. So obviously in this book, we follow a character named Nina who, I think she lives in like San Francisco or something, like a big city, but where she talks about where she lives specifically is like kind of a small town feel because she walks to work, she can walk places, she loves her job at a bookstore. I mean, I did not. Maybe that could be a whole nother video of books that are about bookstores. If you want to, let me know. But it's just about her life as working at a bookstore, maybe falling in love. And it's really another kind of character-driven book where there's not a lot of plot that happens, but just basically about Abby, just basically about Nina's day-to-day life. And she even has like a journal she writes in every day, like a to-do list and grocery list and things like that. And it reminds me so much of me. It's borderline ridiculous. And the last adult book I wanted to mention is A Girl Like Her by Talia Hipper. In fact, honestly, this whole series called the Ravenwood series. It's about, I believe there's 3 books in the series. I've read only one of them, I think. I need to read more, obviously, but all about these women that find love, obviously, while in this very small town where, like, everybody knows each other. And, you know, in the first book in particular, this one girl, I forget her name, I apologize, but she has a lot of gossip about her, about who she is as a person, and so she's always been kind of shut out and never really, you know, gone anywhere or done anything because of that, because of the town thinking that she's something that she is not. Until she meets this one guy who becomes her neighbor, and then something more happens. It's a slow burn adult book, but it just has a small town feel, obviously, because it is a very small town where like word gets around like super fast, but it was adorable and I enjoyed it immensely. Lastly, I want to quickly end with some YA books that have a great small town feel to them. First up is Chasing Lucky by Jen Bennett. I just recently read this. This is about a character named Josie who her and her mom kind of just travel around all over the world. They move places quite frequently and she's never really set roots down anywhere. Something happens and so her and her mom return to her mom's New England hometown many years later. She gets reunited with her best friend when they were younger, and then something happened to make them not friends, and of course things go from there. Jen Bennett just has a great way of writing like any sort of like small town vibes. Like her book series Moonlight takes place in Seattle if I'm not mistaken, but still has a very small town feel to it. And this one again is set in New England. I love books set in New England. Another video idea, perhaps? I'm not sure. Next up, I have Maybe This Time by Casey West. While this is not my favorite Casey West book, this is a great book that is a small town setting. We have a character named Sophie who works for the florist, and since they are in a small town, the florist does everything. She's done weddings, just everything. And so this really follows like a year in her life working there and, you know, doing different events. Each chapter is like kind of a different event, honestly. And it's all about her trying to get out of the small town to go to school and have bigger and better things. And it's just an adorable one. I would say it's probably a summer read, but if you're looking for a small town read, this is great as well. Speaking of summer, the next book is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. This one is all about like this island. Yeah, it's an island called By the Sea where it's a very small island, but it gets flooded with tourists every year because of this one bird, and it follows these sisters that have magical powers and they inherit these powers by a certain age, and one of the sisters' birthday is looming and her powers still have not manifested. It is a beautiful book, very short, very fast to read. Yes, this title says Summer of Salt, but it's kind of a coldish summer, if you will, I think, if that makes any sense, because they're by the sea. You know, I don't know, don't take my word for it. It is a great summer read, but I mean, she's wearing like a flannel in it, so this means that it could be summer or fall, whatever you want to do. Next one is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. So bear with me on this one because this has 2 storylines in it, and one I really wanted to focus on for the small town read. So one of the storylines, we follow 2 sisters that don't know they're sisters. They basically share a dad that neither of them know about that actually passed away in a plane crash. And we follow a character named Yahira who lives in New York City, so obviously not small town. But the other character, Camino, lives in the Dominican Republic in a very small town in the Dominican Republic. And, you know, she loves when her father visits. She knows all the town people. Her grandmother helps out with a lot of people that are sick and things like that. A lot of things are going on. And it's a beautifully told book. You definitely get a very small town vibe in this book. This book is also told in verse and is very emotional. It packs a heavy punch. Goodness me, it is a stunning book. And the last book I want to recommend, or author I guess you could say, is Sarah Dessen. Any Sarah Dessen book will do, because all of her books usually take place in like a small town, like coastal town usually, or like a lakeside town. I don't think I've read a book of hers yet that is yet to take place not in a small town. The one I'm holding up right here is her latest one called The Rest of the Story. You guessed it. It takes place at this small lakeside town about a character named Emma who learns more about her family's, her mother's side of the family at their lakeside kind of town, and it's cute and adorable. Sarah Dessen's great for summer reads, but I just want to throw out there that she writes predominantly small town reads pretty much. I hope you enjoyed my recommendations for small town reads. Hopefully you got something new from it and it wasn't a bunch of repeat books, which it probably could have been. If so, I apologize, but I hope you got something from it. If you have any books that you think are small town reads, leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. I'm sure you'll mention the City Baker's Guide to Country Living. I feel like I've mentioned that countless times, but that's also a small town read, so go for it if you wanted to put that one as well, because that kind of is the definition of a small town read. I should have probably talked about it. I'm talking about it now, so that counts. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.